Hello everybody, here we are today doing our second round series review between the Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks. So before we get into that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So game one is in Vancouver and it is a 50-goal score that ends up kicking off the series. And this is Zach Hyman on the power play as he gives the Oilers an early 1-0 lead in the first. Then you would see Mattias Ekholm get his first playoff goal of this postseason as it is now a 2-0 lead for the Oilers. Early in the second, though, you would see Dakota Joshua score as they are pulling within one goal for the Canucks as they are trying to get a win at home. Edmonton, of course, trying to steal home ice advantage in the very first game of the series. And then in the second, you would see even more goal scoring as it would be Cody Ceci picking up his first goal of the playoffs, as well as Zach Hyman getting his second goal of the game as the Oilers are up 4-1. Elias Lindholm does score for the Canucks to make it a 4-2 game as we get to the third. And then in the third, JT Miller makes things interesting with a goal for Vancouver. And if Miller made things interesting, Zadorov made this a tied game as it's 4-4 Vancouver now in this as you see them clawing back after being down by multiple goals. 30+ seconds later, I can't remember now, I think it's 39 seconds later, Connor Garland ends up scoring the game-winning goal for the Canucks as they were down 4-1, and they end up winning this one 5-4 despite Shilov's ending up allowing 4 goals on 18 shots. And then in game 2, which is of course still in Vancouver, you would see a big-name Canucks player score his first goal of the playoffs, that being Elias Pettersson. We'll talk about that a little bit later towards the end of the video, but yeah, he gets the team out to a 1-0 lead before Leon Draisaitl ends up getting a power play goal to make it even. After the first period of play, it is again tied, and you would see 50-some seconds into the second period, it'd be Brock Besser that gives the home side an advantage yet again. And then you would see Mattias Ekholm end up getting a goal as you would then later on see Nikita Zadorov keep the streak alive of alternating goals between Vancouver and Edmonton for the Canucks to regain the lead. But later in the third, you would see Connor McDavid make it a 3-3 game. And then in overtime, because we do end up getting overtime, it is who else but Evan Bouchard with the game-winning goal as the series is all tied up heading back to Edmonton. So then in game 3, you would see a busy first period as Mattias Ekholm decides again he wants to be a goal-scoring guy and gets the Oilers out to again another early lead. Talk about that later in the series as well, but the Canucks would see a big run for themselves in the first, as well as you'd see Lindholm get a power play goal, Brock Besser score a goal, and then Brock Besser score another goal as it is a 3-1 game, the Canucks leading on the road after 20 minutes of play. And then you would see the Edmonton Oilers pull within one as it is Leon Draisaitl that scores on the man advantage, but it would be Lindholm that scores on the man advantage as well as the Canucks have a 4-2 lead after 40 minutes of play. Then you would go on to see late in the third period, Evan Bouchard score a goal to make it 4-3. However, it is not enough as the Canucks end up holding on to win this one and winning 4-3 despite the fact they're outshot 36-7 over the second and third period combined. So then before game 4, you would see a bit of a shakeup with some things. You see Carson Soucy end up getting a suspension, 1-game suspension for a late cross-check against Connor McDavid. Zadorov would end up getting a $5,000 fine. And then Calvin Pickard would end up getting the start over Stuart Skinner in net for the Oilers as they are trying to make this series level after 4 games. And for the third straight game, you would see Leon Draisaitl score a power play goal followed by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as the Oilers are up 2-0 after 40 minutes of play. Entering the third, they just need to go out there and hold on. But you would see Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland, who else but them, score in the third to make this a tied game. But kind of like we will see in this series, there will be a late goal scored by somebody, and it is Evan Bouchard with his second game-winning goal of the series with like 39 seconds left in the game as the Canucks end up losing this one and the Oilers win as it's now 2-2 as we go back to Vancouver. So then in game 5, you're still seeing Pickard end up starting in net for the Oilers. Evander King gets things going for Edmonton as they once again score the opening goal of the game. You would see Soucy, the man that was recently suspended, end up getting a goal for himself. I believe that was his first of the postseason at that time, but the hockey gods saying, hold up, we know what you did a couple of games ago. Mattias Ekholm ends up scoring a goal like 30 seconds later as it is 2-1 Edmonton. Then you would see Di Giuseppe end up getting his first postseason goal, and this one is all tied up and we are headed to overtime, except hold on, we're not. Remember how I talked about in the previous game how we would see some goals scored late in these games? It would be JT Miller with 32 seconds left, as you would see the Canucks end up winning this one and putting the Edmonton Oilers on the brink of elimination. Then in Game 6, you would see Stuart Skinner end up getting the start over Pickard, despite him allowing just 3 goals on 35 shots against. Anyway, you would see Dylan Holloway open up the scoring for Edmonton, again scoring the opening goal, but you would see Niels Höglander end up getting a goal for Vancouver, as it is 1-1. Things start to unravel for Vancouver though in the second period. And then in the second, you would see Zach Hyman and Evan Bouchard score to make it a 3-1 game. And then in the third, it would be Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Evander Kane to score to make it a 5-1 victory for Edmonton. Vancouver ended up just getting, I think, 15 shots in this game, as it is now headed to a winner-takes-all Game 7 affair back over on the West Coast. So before Game 7, you would see Brock Boeser be forced to miss this game with blood clotting issues. This was talked about before the game, well before, but you're hoping that everything's alright with him, because it sounds like it'll be an issue that will linger or persist for a while. Not exactly sure that's all going to play out, but circling back to this game, you would see the Oilers end up jumping out to a hot start, out shooting Vancouver 13-2 in the first period, but not being able to score a goal. But finally, in the second period, it would be Edmonton that is able to break through as Ceci, Hyman, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins score as they build up a relatively comfortable 3-goal lead entering the final period of play. You would see a little bit of late heroics for the Canucks, as you would see Connor Garland and Filip Hronek, who ends up scoring his first postseason goal, make it a 3-2 game, but ultimately it is just not enough for the Canucks, as they end up losing this game and losing this series, and they manage just 17 shots in this final game. So looking back at this series, I can't really say that this is the sole reason Edmonton ended up winning this, because it did go the full distance, but the Oilers scored the opening goal in 6 of the 7 games. They were able to play in front at times, again had some really big periods, and they were able to have their stars show up, and we kind of knew that they would. As for the Canucks, yes, they dealt with some things that were unfortunate. Game 7, having Brock Boeser out is a big blow, but you had a quiet series from multiple players. Elias Pettersson ended up only having 3 points, but I am going to say probably seems like he is playing through an injury, or he played through an injury, as we're hearing reports now that he was dealing with some form of an injury since, I believe, January, so that is unfortunate. But again, during the playoffs, a lot of people are going to be playing injured. There is the old saying that everybody's injured during the playoffs, and the Canucks just had multiple games where they weren't even able to get 20 shots on net. Kind of a big problem when you're playing a team like the Oilers, where we saw at times they could score a lot of goals and it could come from a variety of people. So for Vancouver, their season is done, as it was still a really good year. Ended up winning the Pacific Division title, ended up winning a postseason series, and were once again, like they were back in 2020, on the verge of making it to the Western Conference Final, only to fall in Game 7. This group feels a lot different compared to that group, and I'm hoping maybe next year can be at least another playoff appearance for this team, as it was very fun as a Canucks fan to see this side play. And yeah, it's disheartening to see them lose in the second round, but you knew the Oilers were going to put up a good fight, and Vancouver trying to figure out what to do in the offseason as they want to replicate this year's success and build off of it. As for the Edmonton Oilers, they are headed to the Western Conference Final for the second time in 3 seasons, and actually at the time of recording this, because it's super late and I do apologize because this week has been crazy, you see them up 1-0 against the Dallas Stars after a 3-2 Game 1 victory in overtime, looking to get back to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time since 2006, looking to win it for the first time since 1990. They could do it, and they could be the first Canadian team to win the Cup since '93. We'll see how that all plays out for them, as they still need 7 wins and all that. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this series? Why do you think Vancouver lost? Why do you think Edmonton won? Let me know all that stuff down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.